Sometimes what changes your fortune isn't some grand, dramatic event. It's something quieter, smaller, something sitting silently, almost invisible to the rushing mind, but obvious to the heart that's willing to listen. Not every treasure is hidden in a vault. Sometimes it rests right there on your kitchen counter, carrying the fate of your home in its bright, living skin. In the practice of Feng Shui, fortune doesn't arrive with trumpets and neon signs. True fortune hums. It moves in subtle rhythms, through the choices we make, the way we care for our spaces, and the small rituals we unknowingly practice every day. It hums through the unspoken agreements we form with life itself. Most people think wealth is only about action, about work, effort, savings, or strategy. And while all of these matter, they are only one half of the story. The other half lives inside your home, breathing quietly through the objects you honor or neglect. Today, I want to bring your attention to something so simple that it might sound impossible at first. A simple set of 3 limes. Yes, 3 limes. Not for cooking, not for cleaning, but for inviting a shift. Today, we're going to explore why these humble fruits have been used for centuries as anchors of energy, guardians of abundance, and silent messengers of fortune. And more importantly, how placing them intentionally in your home could quietly open a door that effort alone has struggled to push. Let me ask you a question, and let it sit with you for a moment. What if wealth isn't something you pursue? What if it's something you welcome? What if your home already holds the seeds of prosperity, but they're waiting for you to make the first move, to send the first signal, to show that you're ready? 3 limes, 3 points of light. A simple, beautiful practice rooted in the ancient understanding that life responds not just to noise, but to alignment. In Feng Shui, the number 3 carries profound meaning. It represents heaven, earth, and humanity, the great cosmic triangle of support. When you bring 3 vibrant fruits into your home with full awareness, you're not just decorating. You are speaking a language older than words. You are placing a whisper into the field around you that says, I am ready to nourish, to protect, and to receive. But it's not enough to simply toss the limes anywhere. Placement matters, intention matters, care matters, because everything in life that matters responds to how you treat it. Energy does not follow laziness, it follows care. When you place something with honor, life honors you back. Later in this video, I'll show you exactly where the 3 most powerful places are to position your limes for maximum flow. And just as importantly, I'll guide you through the mistakes that many people make without even realizing it. Mistakes that can accidentally scatter the very energy they hope to gather. You'll learn how your front door, your kitchen, and even the way your rooms breathe can either invite prosperity in or quietly push it away. I'll also share a few real-life stories, small shifts made by ordinary people who discovered that fortune is not something reserved for the lucky few. It's a pattern that can be woven by anyone willing to listen, including you. Now, before we dive deeper, I want to ask you for a small gesture in return. If you find value in these teachings, if they spark even one new thought, one new way of seeing your space, one small ripple of inspiration, I warmly invite you to help this community grow. Please leave a like on this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Every click, every comment, every new voice brings us a step closer to reaching 1,000 kindred spirits, people who are ready to live not just more successfully, but more intentionally, more beautifully, more awake. At New Day Mindfulness, we're not chasing trends, we're building something quieter and deeper, a home for those who want to walk gently but powerfully in the world. Your support, your presence, truly matters more than you know. So take a breath, settle into your seat, and let's begin this journey, not by forcing life to change, but by opening the invisible doors that have been waiting for you all along. Let's explore the silent power of 3 limes. Let's open the gates of abundance, not with effort, but with alignment. Section 1. Why fruit holds more than flavor. In Feng Shui, fruit is never just food, it is living qi, an active, breathing embodiment of vitality, flow, and abundance. When you place a bowl of fresh fruit in your home, you are not merely adding decoration. You are inviting life itself to dance more freely through your space. You are anchoring the living memory of growth, ripening, fullness, an offering into the very air you breathe each day. The freshness of fruit holds a secret. It mirrors the freshness of your own energetic field. A home without signs of life becomes a home where fortune hesitates. A home where something is growing, brightening, offering itself freely, becomes a space where luck feels welcome to land and stay. And among fruits, citrus, especially limes and lemons, carries a very special charge. Their sharpness, their fragrance, their vivid presence cuts through the heavy, slow-moving fields that can accumulate unseen around you. They awaken, they lift, they scatter what no longer serves and stir what has fallen asleep. Now, why 3? Why not just 1 lime or 10? In classical Feng Shui, the number 3 carries a profound symbolic architecture. 3 is not random. 3 represents the great trinity of existence: heaven, earth, and humanity. Heaven, the unseen forces that guide and bless. Earth, the ground that nurtures and sustains. Humanity, the conscious walker, the one who receives and gives back. When you bring 3 fresh limes into a sacred arrangement in your home, you are signaling your alignment with this cosmic structure. You are saying without words, I walk in step with the rhythm of creation. I welcome support from above, strength from below, and wisdom from within. 3 is stability. 3 is movement that does not collapse. 3 is a pattern life recognizes and responds to. In deeper energetic language, citrus fruits carry what the ancients would call active fire within water. They are juicy, yes, but also sharp, energetic, luminous. They embody the perfect tension between nourishment and activation. Their scent has been shown in modern studies to uplift mood, increase alertness, and even purify air bacteria. But Feng Shui knew this long before science caught up. Limes and lemons cleanse invisible fields. They slice through stagnant qi like a fresh breeze slices through a heavy, closed room. Their sharpness is not aggressive, it is precise. It clears, it refines. It wakes up spaces that have been dulled by routine, burdened by unconscious heaviness, or clogged by emotional residue. You might think, it's just a fruit. How much difference can it make? But I invite you to remember, in Feng Shui, size has never equaled power. Intent equals power. Placement equals power. Respect equals power. A single candle can change the entire emotional tone of a cathedral. A small, living fruit, placed with reverence, can ripple through the energetic bloodstream of your home and recalibrate what your mind alone has been struggling to shift. Every house has places where qi slows, thickens, or curls back on itself. Places where fortune hesitates. These are the dusty corners, the unused spaces, the tables that carry too much memory, the doors that creak without notice. Limes cut through these places. Their brightness interrupts the slow decay of unnoticed energy. Their life signals new beginnings, even in the heart of routines long calcified. There is another layer too. Citrus is connected to solar energy and the 5 elements wisdom of Chinese metaphysics. The sun feeds the citrus trees. Their fruits are literal balls of condensed sunlight. In bringing them into your home, you are also bringing in a touch of yang energy, light, clarity, outward movement. This is why, even in dark seasons or stagnant periods of life, placing 3 limes properly can shift the emotional and energetic landscape far faster than logic would predict. You are not simply decorating. You are summoning clarity. You are reminding life that you are awake, that you are listening, that you are participating in the flow, not passively hoping for luck to stumble upon you. And yet, with all this potency, the practice remains humble. You do not need rare crystals, expensive symbols, or elaborate ceremonies. You need 3 fresh limes, a quiet moment of placement, and an open heart. That is enough. Because fortune, real fortune, is always searching for simplicity to inhabit. Not emptiness, not clutter, not chaos, simplicity. Fresh life placed with clear intent. That is the soil fortune loves most. So today, as we continue this journey together, I invite you to remember, you are not powerless in the face of unseen forces. Your hands, your choices, your small rituals, they matter. They speak. They will build an architecture around you that either supports or erodes your desires. And the choice often is closer than you think. It may even be sitting right there quietly on your kitchen counter, waiting for you to notice, to welcome, to align. 3 limes: heaven, earth, and humanity. A bridge between what you hope for and what is already seeking you. A ritual so old it has no single inventor, and so new it becomes alive again each time someone, somewhere places 3 bright fruits with full awareness and a soft, steady heart. In the sections ahead, we will walk step by step through exactly where to place these limes to create the greatest field of invitation for wealth, health, and happiness. And we'll uncover the hidden mistakes that many well-meaning people make when working with prosperity energy. Mistakes that, once seen, can be easily, gently corrected. Because the truth is, life is not withholding from you. It is waiting for you to open the door. Sometimes all it takes is the placement of 3 simple fruits and the quiet decision to believe that you are ready. Section 2. Best places to position your 3 limes. 1. Near the main entrance, guardian of opportunities. The first and most powerful location to place your 3 limes is near the main entrance of your home. In the ancient philosophy of Feng Shui, the front door is not simply the way you physically enter and leave your home. It is the mouth of Qi, the critical gateway where life energy, prosperity, protection, and fresh opportunities either flow in freely or get obstructed without you even realizing it. The way you treat this space, the way you honor or neglect it, sends a silent but powerful message to the universe about how open you are to receiving what life wants to offer. When you place your 3 limes near the front door, you are doing something far more significant than creating a pretty scene. You are establishing guardianship over your opportunities. You are planting a living signal that says, this household is attentive. This household protects what matters. This household welcomes blessings and is ready to nurture them into lasting fortune. But as with everything subtle and true, the details matter. Simply tossing the limes randomly near the door is not enough. Placement, orientation, and care are key. Traditionally, it is recommended to place the limes on the left-hand side as you face outward from the inside of your home. In classical Feng Shui, the left side is associated with the green dragon, the protective, vital, masculine force that safeguards blessings and channels them into strength and growth. By aligning your limes with the green dragon side, you are tapping into centuries of wisdom that understood how cosmic patterns harmonize with human spaces. You are reinforcing the idea that your prosperity is not accidental. It is invited, shielded, cultivated. Now, where exactly should you place them? Ideally, the limes should sit on a small, natural surface, a simple wooden bowl, a stone plate, or even a clean, beautiful ceramic dish. Avoid plastic or artificial materials that block qi flow. The limes themselves should be fresh, unblemished, vibrant in color. You are not just placing fruit. You are creating an energetic altar, a small but potent magnetic field of vitality. Dust should never be allowed to settle on them. When they start to wither, they must be replaced immediately, without hesitation, as a signal that you respect the living forces you are calling into partnership. Some people ask, can I hide them behind something? Will that still work? The answer is, energy follows visibility. If you hide what represents your fortune, you hide fortune itself. Let the limes be visible but subtle, visible enough to breathe life into the space, but not so loud that they dominate the entrance. Subtlety is an art. Fortune prefers spaces that are alive but not noisy, inviting but not desperate. There's a story I often share when teaching about the power of limes at the entrance. It's the story of a small cafe owner named Elena who ran a struggling business for almost 3 years. Despite excellent coffee, despite loyal customers, something always seemed to hold the business back from thriving. One day, after learning about the Feng Shui principle of the mouth of Qi, she made a simple change. She placed 3 fresh limes in a beautiful wooden bowl on the left-hand side of the main entrance. No signs, no announcement, just the quiet placement of life and intention. Within weeks, foot traffic increased. Customers who had passed by for months without noticing the cafe began stepping inside. Regulars lingered longer, brought friends, spoke more warmly about the place. Elena didn't change her menu, her marketing, or her prices. She changed the invitation her space was sending to life itself. When you place your 3 limes properly by your main door, you are not casting a spell. You are correcting a signal. You are tuning the mouth of your home to say clearly, blessings are welcome here. Opportunities will find shelter here. Life will not be wasted here. And life, sensitive as it is, responds. A few technical notes. If you have a foyer, an entrance table, or a small decorative alcove near your door, these are ideal places to house your limes. If space is tight, even a small wall shelf positioned to the left can work beautifully. Just remember, height matters less than feeling. The limes should feel present, anchored, grounded, not awkwardly high above head level where they are visually disconnected, nor low and hidden where their power is muffled. If you live in an apartment building where your immediate entrance is a long hallway, you may adapt this principle slightly. Place the limes as close as possible to where you mentally experience the threshold of home. The same rule applies. Left-hand side facing outwards, clean, intentional, vibrantly cared for. Finally, a word on renewal. In the natural world, nothing that truly lives remains static. Your limes too will age, soften, dim in their vibrancy. This is not a failure, it is a reminder. When the limes show signs of fading, replace them graciously, not reluctantly. Thank them quietly for their service. Offer the new fruits with fresh intent. The act of refreshing the limes becomes itself a ritual of refreshing your openness to new life, new luck, new possibilities. Energy is not a one-time achievement. It is a garden that asks for steady tending. Your main entrance is the first soil in that garden. Plant wisely, tend faithfully, welcome life in its many unseen forms, and watch as it slowly, gently, irreversibly rearranges itself to honor the invitation you have sent. 2. In the kitchen, nourishment of wealth. The kitchen holds a place of extraordinary importance within Feng Shui tradition, not just as a site of daily meal preparation, but as the living treasury of the home's wealth energy. Nourishment is the most primal and enduring form of abundance. Before gold, before property, before coins, wealth was measured by the fullness of one's granary, the warmth of one's hearth, and the ability to feed not just oneself, but one's family and guests with generosity. Therefore, the kitchen is not merely functional, it is sacred. It is the energetic vault where prosperity is either nourished steadily or allowed to deplete quietly. Positioning 3 limes in your kitchen subtly but powerfully reinforces the energy of ongoing abundance. Their bright color and sharp, living scent create a field of lively qi that keeps the kitchen's energy moving, fresh, and generative. Without such a living anchor, a kitchen can easily slip into stagnation, the kind that over time mirrors itself in financial slowdowns, digestive troubles, or family disharmony. Feng Shui is not superstition. It is the art of observation, the science of how life responds to what is tended and what is neglected. Placement in the kitchen must be conscious. Ideally, the limes should sit somewhere centrally visible, but not directly on the stove or near water sources where conflicting elements can disturb their energy field. A wooden bowl on a side counter, an open shelf near the center of the kitchen, or even atop a clean, uncluttered kitchen island works beautifully. Surrounding them with natural materials, bamboo trays, cotton cloths, ceramic bowls, enhances their stabilizing effect. Avoid placing them under harsh fluorescent lighting or next to heavily electronic appliances, which scramble the living energy they emit. There's a story I often reflect on when explaining the kitchen's energetic role. A family I once consulted had been experiencing a series of persistent but small financial difficulties. Nothing catastrophic, but a constant friction. Unexpected repairs, delayed bonuses, missed opportunities. When I visited their home, the first thing I noticed was that their kitchen, though neat, felt cold, sterile. Their countertops gleamed, but there was no sense of life. No fruit bowl, no growing herbs, no signal of abundance being nourished. I suggested a few small changes, among them placing 3 fresh limes in a handmade wooden bowl at the heart of the kitchen. The change was almost immediate. Within weeks, the family reported a subtle but unmistakable shift. Work projects that had been delayed suddenly moved forward. Unexpected refunds and financial gifts began to trickle in. The household itself became livelier. Meals shared more often, laughter returning to spaces that had felt muted. Nothing major changed externally. No promotions, no lotteries. What shifted was the energetic current inside their home, the current that supports all external fortune. This is why Feng Shui speaks not just of environment, but of relationship. How you relate to your kitchen tells life itself how you wish to relate to wealth. A kitchen cluttered with unpaid bills, dead appliances, or forgotten rotting foods silently tells the universe that abundance is overwhelming, unwelcome, or misused. A kitchen infused with living symbols, fresh fruit, clean water, vibrant plants, tells the universe that prosperity is not only desired, but will be respected and circulated wisely. Now, a few subtle points about the limes themselves. Always choose fresh, vibrant fruit. Soft spots, brown patches, or mold signify declining qi and must be avoided. Rotate your limes weekly if possible, and do so with a small, conscious gesture of gratitude, even if silent. It is not the words that matter, but the intention, the momentary awareness that you are tending to a living relationship with fortune itself. If you have a small kitchen and space is tight, remember, Feng Shui works by energy field, not by quantity or luxury. Even a single small shelf cleared of clutter and consciously appointed with 3 bright limes can generate a field of renewal stronger than a massive, lavish kitchen that has become energetically sterile. Scale does not define energy, attention does. If you wish to amplify the effect, consider placing the limes near a window where they can occasionally catch natural light, or near a growing herb like basil or mint, whose living qi will harmonize beautifully with the citrus. You are creating not just a visual scene, but an invisible song, a vibration of prosperity that hums quietly through the heart of your home. Another question often asked is, should I combine the limes with other fruits, like apples or bananas, in the same bowl? The answer traditionally is no. Each fruit has its own energetic signature. Limes are chosen here specifically for their clearing, sharp, activating qualities. Mixing them dilutes their frequency. Let the limes stand alone, clear and confident, as a distinct energetic signal. It is also wise to reflect seasonally. In colder months, when yang energy naturally recedes, the limes become even more crucial as a counterbalance. In warmer seasons, they help focus the more chaotic expansion of summer energy into a coherent flow of prosperity rather than a scattering of effort. And if you wish to add an additional layer of refinement, you might quietly bless the limes each time you replace them, not with elaborate rituals, but with a simple internal intention. May this home be nourished. May fortune grow steadily here. May all who enter be blessed by the care that lives in this kitchen. Feng Shui teaches that spaces are living mirrors. They are not passive, they listen, they respond, they remember. Every small choice we make within them, where we place a bowl, how we tend to countertop, whether we allow life to circulate or stagnate, sends ripples through the fields of possibility around us. Sometimes what looks like chance, luck, or coincidence, it is simply the flowering of seeds we planted long ago through the invisible rituals of daily life. The kitchen, more than any other room, speaks directly to survival, to warmth, to community, to life itself. To treat it in a cold, functional space is to freeze one's relationship with fortune. To treat it as a living treasury is to align oneself with centuries of wisdom that knew true wealth is not counted only in coins, but in vitality, in generosity, in the steady, renewable nourishment of body, heart, and soul. So as you prepare to place your 3 limes, pause for a moment. Let it not be a mechanical act. Let it be a quiet statement to yourself and to life. I am ready to tend to abundance. I am ready to nourish fortune with care, with joy, with gratitude. In that simple act, invisible but potent, you shift not just your kitchen, but the entire energetic story your home tells about you to the world. 3. Living room emotional and financial stability. The living room is often referred to as the heart of the home, not simply because it is where people gather, but because it becomes the energetic amplifier of all that transpires under the roof. In Feng Shui philosophy, wherever human emotion consistently gathers, whether joy, conflict, celebration, or sorrow, the invisible energy of that space thickens and multiplies. It grows roots, it echoes. It either supports the vitality of those who dwell there or subtly weighs them down over time. That is why how you treat your living room is how you treat your own emotional and financial stability. Placing 3 vibrant, fresh limes in the living room may sound simplistic on the surface, but its deeper energetic role is profound. Limes are not passive objects. In traditional Feng Shui practice, fruits with strong, living, refreshing essences are used not only to invite vitality, but to anchor spaces against the slow drift of emotional heaviness. A living room without some dynamic living energy easily becomes a repository for stagnant qi. Arguments linger, fatigue accumulates, opportunities dry up, relationships strain under invisible, unspoken tensions. The placement of natural, vibrant symbols like 3 limes creates a point of renewal inside the energetic landscape of the home. It quietly tells the room, and by extension, everyone who enters, that life is growing here, not decaying. Where exactly you place the limes matters greatly. Ideally, they should occupy a central or open position where the household's natural traffic and eye movement cross them frequently. A coffee table is an excellent option if it remains reasonably uncluttered. A side table positioned between seating areas, particularly one visible from multiple angles, is another potent choice. If you have a formal living room that rarely sees use, it is even more important to place a small signal of vitality there. Otherwise, the room becomes a vacuum, an energetic dead zone that slowly pulls energy away from the more active parts of the home. There is a story I often recall when working with living room energy and prosperity flow. A middle-aged woman I once consulted had a beautifully decorated home, perfectly curated furniture, expensive art, designer fabrics. Yet she confessed that she constantly felt emotionally flat and that her financial growth seemed stuck despite her efforts. Upon visiting, it became clear why. Her living room was stunning, but frozen. Everything was symmetrical, untouched, more like a showroom than a living space. There were no plants, no living elements, no energetic pulse. It was visually impressive, but energetically barren. I suggested only a few small adjustments, one of which was introducing 3 fresh limes placed in a simple handmade ceramic bowl in the center of her main coffee table. The shift was not immediate, but it was steady. Within 2 months, she reported feeling a surprising lightness when she entered her home. Family members who rarely visited started dropping by more often. New projects and collaborations, things that had long stalled, suddenly began to move forward. She hadn't changed her career, she hadn't changed her effort level. She had changed her energetic environment. That is the often misunderstood wisdom of Feng Shui. The visible world bends in response to the invisible arrangements we have made. Now, an important consideration. In the living room, scale must be in harmony with space. If you place 3 limes in a massive fruit bowl overflowing with other fruits and decorations, their signal becomes muddled, diluted by visual noise. On the other hand, placing 3 small limes thoughtfully arranged on a modest, clean table in a room filled with gentle, breathable space acts like a bell. Their energy rings out cleanly, influencing everything they touch. Feng Shui is always about quality of presence, not quantity of objects. Another detail to remember is the quality and condition of the limes. In the living room especially, where emotional impressions are amplified, the freshness of your fruit matters. Wilted, brown-spotted, or moldy limes will do more harm than good, subtly broadcasting a message of decay and neglect. Refresh the limes weekly, even if they still look outwardly fine. You are not merely maintaining appearance, you are renewing intention, reawakening the flow of qi through your home's emotional center. If you want to enhance the energetic field further, consider combining the limes with another symbol of renewal, such as placing them near a living plant, a bowl of clean water, or a piece of artwork that evokes growth, vitality, or family unity. The key is to build layers of supportive, thriving energy without clutter. Every item must have a purpose, a living role within the energetic ecosystem of the room. The living room, when properly activated, does not simply serve as a backdrop for daily life. It becomes an amplifier. It lifts your personal energy every time you enter. It soothes your emotional field after a difficult day. It creates fertile ground where good conversations, ideas, opportunities, and wealth can naturally root and flourish. Just as neglected soil grows weeds, a neglected living room breeds stagnation. Just as tended soil grows crops, a tended living room grows fortune. There is a beautiful old saying among some Feng Shui masters: a house that speaks kindly to its inhabitants will be spoken kindly of by heaven. In modern terms, it simply means that when you create a living space that genuinely nourishes life, the invisible forces that govern opportunity and abundance begin to smile upon you more easily, more naturally, and more often. So I encourage you, when you next walk into your living room, do not merely assess its aesthetic appeal. Pause and feel it. Does it breathe? Does it welcome you with softness and vibrancy? Or does it sit heavy, stagnant, indifferent? If it feels heavy, if it feels tired, it is not your imagination. It is your intuitive reading of the qi. And sometimes the answer is not grand renovations or major purchases. Sometimes it is simply the careful, humble placement of 3 living symbols of renewal, 3 limes. Inviting life back into the heart of your home, tend to them with quiet care. Replace them not as a chore, but as a practice of honoring life's cycles, of letting go, of refreshing, of inviting more. Treat the placement of those limes not as decoration, but as an ongoing, living conversation with fortune itself. In this small act, you begin to rewrite the emotional story of your home, and therefore the financial and relational story that flows through it. In Feng Shui, we say, where there is life, there is hope. Where there is breath, there is fortune. Your living room, tended well, becomes a breathing, living altar of prosperity. And sometimes all it takes to begin that shift is 3 small fruits, placed with care, tended with awareness, refreshed with gratitude. Or workspace or desk, career growth catalyst. While the living room nurtures emotional stability and collective fortune, the workspace or desk within a home plays a very different but equally crucial role. It is the personal command center of growth. In Feng Shui, the workspace represents not just the physical action of labor, but the energetic foundation upon which all your personal ambitions, creative visions, and financial advancements are built. It is a place where thoughts crystallize into plans and where invisible intentions are given shape through tangible effort. Therefore, what you place in or near this sacred area directly affects not only your productivity, but the very flow of prosperity into your personal and professional life. Adding 3 fresh limes near your desk is a deceptively simple act with profound effects. In Feng Shui terms, limes embody clarity, freshness, and decisive forward movement. Their vibrant color and strong scent naturally awaken the wood element's energy within a space, the energy of growth, upward momentum, and resilience. When placed within the sphere of your daily work activities, limes serve as living anchors, helping to cut through mental stagnation, indecision, and emotional exhaustion that can accumulate around career pursuits. Consider this: your desk is not merely a surface to hold a computer and papers. It is a symbolic field. What grows there multiplies. If your desk is cluttered with outdated projects, unpaid bills, or random distractions, it quietly signals to your subconscious that confusion and inertia are acceptable states. On the other hand, a clean, energized desk, subtly activated by the vibrant life force of 3 carefully placed limes, sends a constant, silent message to your deeper mind. Focus is fruitful, effort is rewarded, new growth is welcome. Placement of the limes matters. Ideally, they should be positioned where you can see them often, but not where they physically obstruct your working space. A small, simple bowl placed on the far left-hand corner of the desk, from your sitting perspective, works beautifully. In traditional Feng Shui, the left side relates to supportive energy and wisdom. Placing limes there supports not only external wealth attraction, but also the internal wisdom needed to recognize and seize new opportunities when they arise. I recall the story of a young entrepreneur I once worked with. She ran a small online design studio from a corner of her apartment. Despite her talent and hard work, she confessed to feeling invisible in her industry, like her ideas simply vanished into the void. no matter how much effort she poured into her craft. Upon visiting her home, the energetic issue was immediately apparent. Her desk was wedged tightly into a dim corner, surrounded by stacks of outdated paperwork, with no symbols of life, vibrancy, or upward movement nearby. Among other adjustments, I suggested she refresh her workspace energetically by introducing 3 fresh limes in a small bamboo dish at her left side just beyond her laptop. She agreed, somewhat skeptically at first. Within a month, however, subtle shifts began. Clients who had previously been lukewarm suddenly became enthusiastic. New offers arrived unexpectedly. Creative collaborations, once elusive, started falling into place with little struggle. It wasn't magic, it wasn't superstition, it was the natural result of clearing stagnant chi and anchoring her workspace in vibrant, renewing energy. One important nuance to remember: the state of the limes reflects the state of the chi they are anchoring. Wilted, dry, or moldy fruit signals neglected intention. Therefore, refreshing the limes weekly is not just about aesthetics. It is about reaffirming your ongoing commitment to nurturing your career, your ideas, and your financial vitality. Each replacement becomes a small but potent ritual of renewal, an act of conscious stewardship over your path forward. Now let's talk about the quality of attention you give during this simple act. When you replace your limes, take a brief moment, just a few breaths, to silently affirm your dedication to clear thinking, wise action, and receptive openness to new wealth streams. Imagine your projects unfolding with ease, your talents being recognized, your efforts being met with enthusiastic support. This moment of visualization, paired with the physical act of renewing the limes, amplifies the energetic signal you are sending into your environment and into the wider field of opportunities beyond your home. Another layer to consider is the materials surrounding your limes. A small wooden or ceramic tray, natural materials that harmonize with the wood element of the limes themselves, is preferable to plastic or synthetic holders. If you wish to deepen the energetic field even further, you might place a small slip of paper beneath the tray, inscribed with a word or phrase representing your professional intention for the next cycle. Clarity, expansion, impact, prosperity. Let it remain private, a silent contract between your subconscious and the living forces you are nurturing. And remember, in Feng Shui, subtlety wins over grandeur. You do not need giant displays or ostentatious symbols. A small, well-placed trio of fresh limes, renewed with care and intention, quietly and steadily shifts the field around you. Over time, these small adjustments accumulate power, drawing opportunities that match the quality of the energetic soil you have so carefully prepared. There is a profound teaching in both Feng Shui and Buddhist understanding. External form shapes internal mind. Internal mind shapes external form. Your workspace is not a passive container. It is an active participant in your unfolding life story. The way you honor it, energize it, and align it with life-giving forces like fresh fruit directly affects the narratives and opportunities that will arise for you in the visible world. Therefore, let your desk be more than functional. Let it be aspirational. Let it be a place where life breathes, where energy flows without obstruction, where your deepest aspirations are nourished with daily attention and invisible support. And let 3 simple limes, humble yet powerful, serve as your steadfast allies in that quiet, patient cultivation of fortune. Tending to this small ritual each week and also reminds you of an often forgotten truth, that real success is not built in sudden explosions of luck, but in the steady, ongoing alignment of small, mindful actions with greater life forces. It is the unseen roots, nurtured daily, that eventually burst forth into visible flowering. And so, as you sit at your desk tomorrow, glance at the 3 limes you have placed there. Feel their living energy, fresh, simple, unpretentious yet powerful, whispering to you, grow, trust, reach upward. Let them be both a blessing and a compass as you navigate the wide seas of your professional and personal journey. 5. Dry corner of the bathroom. When it comes to Feng Shui, few areas in the home are as misunderstood or as quietly influential as the bathroom. Often dismissed as purely functional, the bathroom actually represents one of the most critical energetic leak points within a living space. Water, the universal symbol of wealth and emotional flow, is continually drained here. Toilets flush it away. Sinks wash it down, iron, showers sweep it off our bodies and into the pipes. And while cleanliness is essential, unmanaged water flow in Feng Shui often equals uncontained life force, subtle wealth erosion, and a gradual weakening of vitality. In this delicate field, placing 3 fresh limes in a dry corner of your bathroom becomes more than a decorative gesture. It becomes a silent act of sealing the unseen cracks through which fortune might otherwise slip away. Let's go deeper. Bathrooms are, by nature, yin spaces. They are secluded, moist, often darker than other parts of the home. Yin in proper balance is restful and restorative. But when it becomes excessive, it transforms into stagnation, depression, and energetic depletion. That's why balancing a bathroom's heavy yin with carefully chosen life-affirming elements is critical. And the pothos of today's teaching, the humble, vibrant lime, becomes an elegant, low-maintenance antidote. Why lime specifically? Their sharp, fresh aroma cuts through heavy moisture fields. Their bright color sends subtle visual signals of life and alertness. Their natural oils release invisible ions into the air, cleansing and lifting the surrounding energy quietly but consistently. In the language of Feng Shui, limes serve as small guardians of the life force, reinforcing the body's and home's natural defenses against unnoticed energetic seepage. Placement matters, as always. You don't want to simply drop 3 limes randomly on a windowsill or a countertop. Instead, choose a dry, stable corner, preferably one out of direct sight from the toilet, but within the broader bathroom environment. Why dry? Because water-saturated areas already have an excess of downward-pulling qi. Placing limes in a dry spot allows their upward-moving, life-affirming properties to work without being drowned or counteracted. Ideally, use a small ceramic plate, a shallow wooden bowl, or even a polished stone slab as a resting place for them. Natural materials amplify the anchoring effect without introducing synthetic or disruptive vibrations. Refresh your limes regularly. In bathrooms, due to humidity, limes may age faster than in other parts of the house. Once weekly is a good rhythm. If you notice any signs of shriveling, dark spots, or mold, replace immediately. Because in Feng Shui, the physical state of an object mirrors the energetic state it holds. A decaying lime silently suggests unresolved decay in finances, health, or emotional reserves. A fresh, vibrant lime reinforces the message. Life is present, prosperity is guarded, energy flows wisely. Let me share a real-world story that highlights how subtle yet powerful this practice can be. A client of mine, an older woman living alone in a beautiful but somewhat damp house near the coast, struggled with a pattern of almost success. Opportunities would arise, promising friendships, investments, new projects, only to collapse or drift away before truly anchoring. She maintained a pristine home, yet something elusive seemed to sap her forward momentum. When we walked through her space together, the energetic imbalance in the bathrooms was immediately evident. Dripping taps, wet floors, heavy air, and no presence of life force symbols. Among other adjustments, I suggested placing 3 fresh limes in the driest, brightest corner of each bathroom, on small stone dishes, accompanied by a quiet blessing of protection. She was skeptical, but willing. Within 6 weeks, she reported subtle but undeniable changes. A new circle of supportive friends entering her life, a delayed investment finally bearing fruit, and an internal feeling of lightness she hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't magic, it was realignment, reaffirming life at one of the most vulnerable, energetic portals in her home. There's another layer to this practice worth mentioning. When you place your limes, do so with mindfulness. Even 30 seconds of silent intention, something like, "May fortune stay anchored here, may flow remain blessed and wise," amplifies the energetic effectiveness. In both Feng Shui and Buddhist philosophy, the invisible thoughts and feelings behind actions matter even more than the actions themselves. It's not the lime that changes your luck. It's your choice to tend your home like a living being, to co-create with the forces around you that shifts your destiny. If you feel called, you can also pair your limes with complementary elements. A small pebble from a flowing river, a piece of selenite or clear quartz, a sprig of dried rosemary tied with red thread. These additions aren't necessary, but they can enhance the field, reinforcing your intent to anchor clarity, flow, and prosperity where erosion once reigned. And yes, questions often arise about artificial limes or lime-scented items. My guidance is simple. Use real, living fruit. In Feng Shui, real life responds to real life. Synthetic objects carry no qi. Their vibrational field is empty, no matter how beautifully designed they are. Only real, breathing, growing things can truly partner with you in the invisible work of shaping destiny. So tonight, when you glance around your home, pay special attention to your bathrooms. Don't just think about the fixtures, the tiles, the practicalities. Feel. Is the air heavy and is the room strangely silent? Is there an emotional leakiness you hadn't named until now? If so, know that change is within your reach, not through massive renovation or expensive overhauls, but through small, precise acts of care like this one. Bring 3 limes into your bathroom space, not as decorations, but as companions, as guardians, as reminders that even in the places where energy seems to disappear, you have the power to welcome life back, to seal, to bless, to protect. This is the heart of real Feng Shui, not just furniture arrangement, not mere symbolism, but a living dialogue between human intention and the breathing world. In every home, no matter how humble or grand, there are portals, small places where fortune either gathers or escapes. Your job as the steward of your space and your destiny is to know these places and honor them accordingly. 3 limes placed with reverence in a dry bathroom corner are a quiet but mighty act of honoring. And as always, remember, fortune rarely thunders into a house uninvited. It whispers, it watches, it seeks spaces where life is tended thoughtfully, where nothing is neglected, where even the smallest corner is offered to the dance of renewal. Section 3, mistakes to avoid when using the lime ritual. When working with energy through objects as simple as fruit, precision and reverence matter more than most people realize. In Feng Shui, every living thing carries a certain resonance. If treated carelessly, even a ritual as pure as placing limes can backfire, not because the practice is flawed, but because the execution muddles the intended energetic message. To truly harvest the benefits of the lime ritual and ensure that prosperity finds fertile ground in your home, it's essential to be aware of 3 subtle but impactful mistakes that many people unknowingly make. The first and most common mistake is using rotten or overripe fruit. It may seem obvious at first glance, yet it's astonishing how often people neglect this foundational truth. In Feng Shui, vitality speaks louder than appearances. A lime that looks acceptable on the outside, but feels soft, heavy, or carries a hidden blemish inside becomes an anchor for dead energy. Dead energy cannot cultivate fortune. It cannot build abundance. It simply slows, thickens, and eventually decays whatever field it inhabits. Imagine walking into a room perfumed not by the bright crispness of life, but by the subtle, clinging scent of loss. This is what happens when rotten fruit lingers unseen. The qi, the life force around it, begins to mirror that slow deterioration. In a home, that might manifest as delayed financial opportunities, inexplicable emotional heaviness, strained relationships, or even a lack of clarity and focus. Your limes must be vibrant, firm to the touch, glossy, living green. They should sing with hidden life, not whisper of decline. Inspect your limes as you would inspect an important guest entering your home. If there is even a slight doubt about their freshness, replace them immediately. Treat the act of choosing fruit as the first act of your ritual, not a mere preparation step. Selection in Feng Shui is already intention. The second mistake is forgetting timely replacement. Life force, like anything else, follows the principle of impermanence. What is bright today will dim tomorrow if not refreshed. In the West, people often think of rituals as something static. You set them up once and leave them alone. But in the deeper currents of Eastern philosophy, rituals are living conversations. They must be attended to, refreshed, renewed in rhythm with the world they seek to influence. When a lime is placed and then forgotten, its energy does not freeze, it declines. Slowly, invisibly, that sphere of fortune begins to dull. Chi starts to clump rather than flow. You may not notice it at first, perhaps a slight hesitation in your motivation, a cooling of vibrant ideas, a sudden feeling of disinterest in projects you were once excited about. These symptoms are not random. They reflect the field you have inadvertently allowed to stagnate. One client of mine, a meticulous woman who prided herself on maintaining a lucky home, confessed during a consultation that her financial luck had begun to feel strangely sticky over the past few months. Opportunities would arise, but close at the last minute. Clients would inquire, then disappear. When I asked about her prosperity rituals, she showed me proudly her 3-lime setup at the entrance. To her shock and embarrassment, when we approached it together, 2 of the limes were shriveled and dull, almost grayish under the skin. They had been there for months. She had set the intention, but forgotten the follow-through. Within days of refreshing the arrangement with new, vibrant fruit, the energy in her home shifted tangibly. Within weeks, she had signed 2 new lucrative contracts she had been pursuing for nearly a year. This is not coincidence. It is the quiet, powerful language of energy responding to renewed care. The third, equally critical mistake is disrespectful or messy placement. Energy follows intention. Every act of placement is a signal to yourself, to your subconscious mind, to the invisible fields that weave fortune around you. Tossing 3 limes absent-mindedly onto a dirty counter, into a dusty corner, or alongside piles of unrelated clutter sends a chaotic message. I do not truly value this. I do not truly welcome prosperity. The field reads that indifference clearly and responds in kind. Placement must be clean, deliberate, and infused with care. Whether you choose a simple wooden plate, a shallow ceramic bowl, or even a hand-folded cloth, what matters is that you choose consciously. Wipe the surface first. Arrange the limes with a moment of silent gratitude. If possible, accompany them with a small gesture of honor, such as lighting a natural candle nearby once a week, or offering a whispered blessing for the flow of life and fortune. Another example illustrates this beautifully. A young artist, struggling to break into her market, contacted me for a Feng Shui consultation. She had heard of the lime ritual and, in her enthusiasm, had placed 3 limes in her studio, directly on a cluttered windowsill piled high with unpaid bills, tangled cords, and dusty trinkets. The limes themselves were relatively fresh, but the environment they were asked to work in was chaotic and heavy. After a gentle conversation, she cleared the space, cleaned the sill, polished a small wooden dish, and placed 3 new limes carefully, adding a single small jade stone for harmony. Within a month, she received an invitation to her first gallery showing, a breakthrough she had been waiting for years. Again, this is not magic. It is alignment. It is partnership between the seen and the unseen. Ultimately, all 3 mistakes come back to one core truth. In Feng Shui, the object is never the power. The object is the vessel. The true power is how you engage with it. A lime is a lime until you imbue it with care, precision, and living partnership. Then it becomes a beacon, a guardian, a silent messenger that tells life. Here, in this home, fortune is received with reverence. Here, in this life, opportunity is recognized and honored. As you move forward, remember, small care creates large ripples. Refresh your limes. Choose them wisely. Place them with devotion, not obligation. Honor them, and they will honor you in return. This is the true art, not of manipulating luck, but of preparing yourself quietly and steadily to meet it when it arrives. In the next section, we will explore how to deepen and extend this energy even further, amplifying the presence of life and fortune through subtle layering and seasonal renewal. Because in the dance of abundance, those who listen carefully to life's smaller whispers are the ones who hear its loudest blessings. Section 4, Story, a quiet transformation. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen quietly, without grand gestures or loud announcements, but through small, almost invisible shifts in how we inhabit our lives. One woman's story captures this perfectly, offering a real-world mirror for what we have been exploring throughout today's teachings. Her name was Linda, a middle-aged professional living in a bustling city. For years, she had built her business from the ground up, carving out a modest but steady life. Yet somewhere along the way, without noticing it, her energy had begun to dim. Friends who once checked in regularly fell silent. Work referrals dried up. The warm hum of opportunity that had once felt so close now seemed like a faint memory, as if life itself had quietly slipped a few steps away from her. Linda first encountered the idea of energetic rituals, not through a grand workshop or heavy theory, but almost by accident. She stumbled across a short article about the lime ritual, how 3 simple fruits, when placed thoughtfully, could shift the vibration of a space without a word. Skeptical but curious, she decided she had nothing to lose. She bought 3 small, vibrant limes. Instead of rushing, she spent a few moments in silence when she arrived home, clearing a small corner near her front door. She chose a shallow wooden dish she had once loved but forgotten in a dusty cupboard. She placed the limes carefully, almost ceremonially, and then went about her evening without expecting much. Nothing happened overnight. There were no fireworks, no sudden windfalls. But slowly, quietly, life began to breathe differently around her. Within a week, an old college friend reached out unexpectedly, inviting her for coffee. A week later, a former client emailed to ask if she was available for a new project. Linda found herself smiling more often at strangers, standing taller when she entered a room, feeling lighter when she woke in the morning. Without making any dramatic outward changes, her world had begun responding to the new, clearer field she had created inside her home and inside herself. By the end of 3 months, she described her life as feeling like a house where the windows had been thrown open after a long winter. New air, new light, new possibility. Reflecting on Linda's experience brings us back to a profound but easily forgotten truth. Sometimes fortune does not need to be chased, begged for, or wrestled into submission. Sometimes fortune simply needs to feel invited home. It needs an environment that signals, through small, respectful acts, "You are welcome here. You are wanted here." When our space is hum with freshness, care, and intention, life answers in kind. Energy flows toward where it feels seen, respected, and able to thrive. Too often we believe that luck is a stranger who randomly visits some homes and avoids others. But in deeper traditions, luck is not a stranger at all. It is a relative. It is family. It responds to the invisible invitations we issue every day through the way we treat our space, our possessions, our rituals, and ultimately ourselves. In Feng Shui, these practices are not about superstition or magical thinking. They are about resonance. They are about learning to speak the subtle language that life listens to and aligning ourselves with its quiet laws of vitality and flow. Linda's limes did not change her life because fruit itself holds power greater than human will. They changed her life because she used them as a doorway, a small, steady signal to the universe and to herself that she was ready to be vibrant again, connected again, open again. And life, as life always does, answered her whisper with an echo. As you reflect on your own living spaces, the corners you walk past without noticing, the objects you place without thought, the quiet rituals you may have overlooked, ask yourself not, "Do I deserve more fortune?" but rather, "Have I made my fortune feel at home here?" Begin with one small act, a lime, a dish, a moment of care. That is more than enough to begin weaving a new field of resonance around you. Because at the end of the day, energy follows feeling. Feeling shapes field, and field shapes fortune. Final wealth is not a prize we chase. It is an atmosphere we build, deliberately, patiently, with every thought, every object, every quiet choice that either honors energy or forgets it. True abundance isn't about seizing, it's about cultivating. It grows just like a garden grows, not because you demand it, but because you create the conditions where life feels safe to bloom. And perhaps the greatest secret is that you don't have to change everything in overnight. You don't have to uproot your life, repaint your house, or wait for a perfect moment. The way forward begins exactly where you are, with exactly what you have. One fresh lime placed with intention. One new thought, tender but determined. One silent yet powerful invitation back to the life you were always meant to inhabit. Start small, start true. Trust that energy notices, trust that life listens. And if today's reflections illuminated even one quiet corner of your heart, even one tiny way you might care for your space or yourself differently, I would be deeply honored to hear about it in the comments. Your stories are not just responses, they are living ripples that extend the energy of this circle outward, weaving a web of quiet hope between us all. If this video spoke to you, if it gave you even a new breath of possibility, I warmly invite you to join our growing family here at New Day Mindfulness. Every like you leave, every share you offer, every voice you add helps this gentle community reach toward our first 1,000 kindred spirits. And beyond that, toward a world where energy is treated with the respect and tenderness it deserves. May your space flourish, may your fortune feel welcome, and may you remember sometimes the most profound shifts begin with something as simple as a lime and a choice.